Hi guys, I hope everybody's having a great weekend. So we're going to look at the weekly analysis for the upcoming week. That is the week of July 10th. So we are at an interesting position. We've seen a rejection at 1935 this week, which was the expected. It's the weekly trend line as we looked at. So what's happened last week? Quick review. NFP not giving us the expected number, and NFP actually sending the dollar into the negative side, with gold going short-term bullish. Now, is the bullish run going to continue? We'll see. The upcoming week looks like it's going to be extremely looks like it's going to be a little bit of a bullish move overall. So we're going to just quickly take a look at what the market is presenting, what's the opportunities that we can see, and what levels that we should be looking out for, right? So based on the monthly, current monthly is again within that same range. The monthly range, we can expect the monthly to go a maximum of 1960, looking at the previous range, because we are kind of within that consolidation area. So price does have the scope of going up to 1959, 1960 area. Initially, we are going to look at the level of 1950 if price breaks above 1935. So you need a 4-hour closure below that area for price to continue further up, and that's when you would be looking at further buys. Start of the week, it becomes a little bit interesting because the upcoming week we don't have any news for Monday and Tuesday, which means it's gonna be the market is pretty much going to become a little bit of an interesting. What is worth looking at is in the upcoming week we have some major newses, which includes PPI. We have inflation rate coming up on Wednesday, and Thursday gave us PPI. So not a hugely news-based week, but inflation rate is going to give us a huge perspective on how this month is going to be turning out to be. The expectation is inflation is going to drop further down to 3.6% from the previous 4%. With the existing pause on the interest rates, will that continue? Now, this is where the Feds are going to be looking at. This is going to be the driver for the decision on whether interest rate needs to go up, which is something that we need to factor in as well. If inflation rate drops from 4% to less than 4%, close to forecast, as long as it is lower than 4%, interest rate should not go up immediately. If it is as expected, then that's fantastic. It's working as they're planned, and so we may not see a rise in interest rates, right? So, however, look at where price is currently at. If in the week, as we go through our analysis every day, we need to look at an evidence of whether the technicals are giving us any indication that price is probably going to go further bullish, and that is going to be the interesting part. So when we look at the charts right now, we are seeing that the top range is going to be up to 1960. Let's mark the level up right there, and looking at the bottommost level is right there, right? Now, is price able to make that swing through this coming week is going to be an interesting part. Right now, I would be looking at a little bit of a further evidence around 1935. Since we have broken through a few daily trend lines, we'll look at that as well. We just need to identify where price has the potential of taking support. Right there. So that is the weekly trend line. That is where we rejected through the week. So now, do we continue towards the downside, or do we start moving up? right? That's going to be the question. So if I was to consider this to be the trend line, it would still have rejected, right? So even with that, we've still rejected, as the body has still closed below that trend line. So right now, this is going to be the interesting part, right? The next week is going to open right there. Are we going to see a rejection towards the downside, or are we going to see an immediate break above, right? That's going to be the interesting part to look at. Since we're back to 1925, now let's jump into daily and let's look at what that situation is. So if we adjust this a little bit right there, so we have 1, 2, and 3 touch points right there. So we have a confirmed daily area of rejection on the trend line, and at 1935, which is a decent rejection area that we've seen on the weekly. So now, considering the way prices moved through the previous week, price has pretty much gone sideways, right? It couldn't make a lower low. It did kind of broke through, but it decided to start going sideways. Now, are we going to break above into a range, into a symmetrical range where we made the decision of going further down, or are we going to start dropping further down? That is going to be the big question. Since Monday and Tuesday don't have huge amount of news to affect it, it's going to be a very critical thing to look at. Now, we do have a good range towards the downside. Looking at the daily, once we break below 1893, we would still face a little bit of an obstruction around 1886, which is also, where price could jump back up. So right now, this week, considering the trendline rejection, we could go back up to 31, look for a possible drop, maybe a support. We don't have any news that's just going to break us above, unless something happens in the market internationally that could lead for gold to go up and break through that trend line, the weekly and the daily trend line. So that is going to be an interesting thing to look at. But we could see potentially this price taking support eventually, and maybe Wednesday pushes it out. That is going to be the kind of the expectation right now, given that this week we may see a little bit of a bullish move on gold. Now, if that ends up being positive for the dollar, then this is where we would end up breaking through that area, but we would still find further support at this level here. So 1885.9, 1886 is going to be the next area towards the downside. If we are going towards the top side, based on the weekly, we have a range of up to 1960 and 1949.5, I believe. 49.5, yeah. So first area of resistance, we have a doji right there, so let's mark that up. The power of the doji. Let's see if market takes rejection within that range. So looking at the daily, if price just does jump up here, it doesn't have to go all the way up to 1960 at this point, as long as it doesn't break above, take support, and goes further up. We get into a range, so there's a lot of rejection area here. Price can reject at any given point once we enter into this area. So if you're trying to look for good entries, currently for sells, we would end up looking at 1950 as an area of correction if price was to break above that trend line. Right now, looking at the current situation, we could expect a retest of the trend line and then a drop further down. So just considering that, let's see what opportunity the market creates for us, right? Currently, this is what I'm expecting, a retest of the trend line. So will that be Monday? Will that be Tuesday? I don't know. We'll look at it as market moves through Monday to give us evidence of what's going to happen. But right now, just looking at it, That's going to be the expectation. So it's going to be a very crucial week. Since we're going sideways, you want to be taking extremely good confirmations and low risks, because market has been going sideways. It started going sideways at the previous range, exited out of that, and got into another sideways movement, which we've seen a little bit of a sideways movement historically within that range here. So is that normal, or is that abnormal, or what's the situation? Well, historically, there's a little bit of consolidation. We are kind of consolidating. So in this situation, only take very, very strong and proper evidences before you get into any entries. Take proper risk management. Don't overtrade in this situation, because currently we are expecting market to kind of dip down before continuing to move further up. Current expectation, I would still look at, my current expectation is still right there. Right, so there's a daily trend line coming in from the bottom. We've taken support, so we are kind of in an interesting spot, right? Price has to make a decision. Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? So let's see what the market does. So all in all, looking at the week, we could expect initial bearish movement and a bullish push, eventually making a decision. So this week is going to be extremely critical. Are we going up or are we going down? Right? This is a weekly trend line as well. We're seeing 2 rejections at that weekly trend line, and then another weekly trend line coming in from the top, which also has a rejection at the top. Now, which one is market going to respect? What is the decision market is going to make? Is it going to continue further down, or is it going to go up? Now, a break above this level here, based on resistance areas, 1960 is what we are saying is going to be the current target. The moment we break above, we are going to go up and challenge the highs. If you're trying to trade gaps, there's a gap here on the weekly. There is probably a gap on the daily as well. Yeah, and so on and so forth. So the move all the way up here right now does not seem possible. Price needs to create support above 1960 to keep pushing further up. And so the upcoming couple weeks are going to be very interesting to look at. So this week, looking at the daily, we are close to making a decision. The next couple days should be giving us a decision. Maybe we might see the decision coming in Monday itself. So be extremely cautious on what you do. Looking at DXY, let's clean up this chart a little bit. There we go. So looking at DXY, the weekly taking support once again, right there. Now, does this mean price is going to drop further down? Not necessarily, right? Price is still above this area here. This is the area where price has gone bullish multiple times. Price tried to make a break above once, twice, thrice, failed. Eventually it did, pushed up all the way, got rejected at another area where now price has come back down, created a proper support. Now there's a chance for it to go up. As long as it doesn't break through 102, we should be able to build the momentum to break above. So dollar could generate a little bit of a strength, because now since we if you look at it, what market is doing right now, so we are jumping into a symmetrical triangle, which is on the weekly. We are at that trend line, considering that is the trend line. We have 1 and 2 touch points already. Third one kind of almost there. There it is. So third one is definitely there. Will the next week give us a push back up? Looking at the DXY, it kind of aligns. The analysis is aligned with what we're looking at gold, where gold is closer to the trend line, has rejected the trend line at the top. Now, looking at DXY, we are kind of within the same situation, rejected the trend line at the bottom. So if DXY, if dollar is supposed to gain momentum in the coming week, which means gold is pretty much going to see a push further down. Now that is second piece of confirmation we're looking at, but there's more information we need to look at. We are in a critical range. Looking at the daily, once we break through 1937, we are going up, right? We go back into the range. Now we could still move up, take an immediate reaction, and get pushed down. Price can do that, but the only problem is, if on the daily we go above and close, we are back into that range, which now makes it difficult for us to expect an immediate move down, because as we see on the left hand side, price has taken support here once, support here multiple times, left hand side, support formed. So if market creates support within this range, it's going to be an interesting range for price to get back into. So that's why have to be trading very carefully once price jumps back in there, because this is where, again, it is garbage zone. It's a consolidation area. You don't want to be trading too much within that range. You want price to make a proper decision. But yeah, aligning DXY and aligning gold, what we're looking at is a possible move towards the downside from this area of rejection, with the next daily moving towards the trend line and taking a rejection from there. We'll see what the market holds and through the following week. As usual, we'll jump on Asian for the Monday session, and let's look at what the Asian market creates for us, and then we'll look for trades accordingly. 4 hour kind of within that range, within that trend line right there. Looking at 1 hour, within the same spot. So let's see what the market does. Okay. We've closed below 1926, which, if we look at the 4 hour, is we couldn't create support above, we couldn't close above. However, the area that we did close, there is an area of support right there on the 4 hour. So price can pretty much dip down, go back up, potentially take a rejection, come back all the way down, and then next one we could look for a possible push up, or we could just range for the next couple days before Wednesday, when we have inflation news gives us the decision, right? Now there's no direct forecast that we can put on inflation. Inflation has been dropping. Now, is that going to be a good thing that we look at? Is it going to drop? Is it going to go up because they didn't increase interest rates? That is something that we cannot forecast, because the pace at which it's been going up and down has changed based on the rates changing constantly. With them now pausing it, it changes the metrics a little bit. So that is where it becomes complicated to make a forecast and say that, okay, it's going to go down further. It's kind of unpredictable at this moment, so we have to wait for that news to kind of come out and give us a direction. So trading during that news time with any possible entries, we need to look at what Monday and Tuesday creates for us. Is there a good area of support? Has price created a good structure? And then based on that, we take a trade, right? If price creates a good structure within this area, giving us more confirmation that there is a higher chance of rejection towards the downside, which is, again, sending gold down, then in that situation, you can take a sell. Till then, we need to look at what kind of a structure market creates, right? So till then, we'll wait and we'll see what the market gives us. So I will see you guys back in Asian. Trade safe. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll be here as usual, Asian Monday session. See you guys then.